My name is Jim Colvin. I'm Senator Ball's Chief of Staff. It's a pleasure to have everyone here tonight to talk about our proposed State Veterans Cemetery. This will be our agenda. We're going to go through our Pledge of Allegiance, and it will be led by Sheriff Smith. Everybody will rise.
As we honor America tonight, pledging allegiance to the flag, we never do this in a rote manner. We want to remember the fact that this is the flag of the United States of America. This is the flag that our veterans have so proudly served under. This is the flag that represents the beacon of hope, freedom, and justice throughout the entire world. And this is the flag that those veterans have served in time of peace and in time of war. And we know from this flag and from those veterans that our freedom isn't free. It's bought and paid for by the blood, sweat, tears, loneliness of those who served, and those who have paid the ultimate sacrifice, and those who bear the scars of war right here at home. So tonight, we remember all of them. And we also remember members of law enforcement who served under this flag, who proudly served on 9/11 and throughout many of the trials and tribulations we've experienced right here at home in America. And tonight I would like to especially remember two of those native sons in Putnam County. I would like to remember, as we pledge allegiance to the flag tonight, Detective Michael Perry from the White Plains Police Department, who gave his life in the line of duty. And we also remember Police Officer John Falcone from the Poughkeepsie Police Department, a native here of Carmel, who gave his life. So let's remember them, and let's remember all those who have served, and let's keep this country the beacon of freedom, hope, and justice throughout the entire world. Please join me as we pledge allegiance to America. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim.
As you can see from our agenda tonight, we're going to go through and provide some perspectives from Sheriff Smith as well as County Executive Eldridge. And then after they finish with their perspectives on this wonderful project, we'll have Senator Ball to come up to take you through an overview of the entire project, and then we'll have questions and answers. Okay, we would like for it to be highly interactive tonight, so please feel free to ask questions really throughout. We'd like Sheriff Smith to come back up to share his perspective on this project.
Well, first of all, I would like to thank everyone for coming here tonight. I think tonight represents an old-fashioned town hall meeting with people coming at the local level, the level of government closest to the people, where everyone can express their opinions. And you know, the Pledge of Allegiance that we just said represents a country where we have those freedoms to speak out, and we can speak out it without fear. And you know, I think tonight represents that democracy. So from a veteran's standpoint, I would just like to say I understand that anytime you have any project in a democracy, you're going to have people who are for it and you're going to have people who are against it. And I think it's important, before anyone finally makes up their decision, that they get all the facts. You know, it never hurts to get all the facts. And I think it's important that all the facts get out, they're put on the table, that people's questions are answered. And if anyone has questions and the answers aren't readily available, then we need to go back to the drawing board and get them the answers to the questions. Because that's what this country is all about. This country is about we the people, which is in our governing document, the Constitution of the United States of America. You know, as a veteran, I'm proud to serve here in Putnam County. I'm proud to be a veteran and also to be a member of the law enforcement community. These are two noble professions, and I'm certainly proud to be a part of both of them, to have been privileged to serve in both of them. I'm also proud to live in a county that has veterans who are so active, who are so involved in their community. If you look throughout Putnam County, you look in whether it be sports organizations for youth, service organizations such as Rotary or the Elks, you can go on and on and on. You can look at churches and synagogues. Everywhere you go, you will see veterans providing leadership, not only during the military service, but when they come back home and serve in America. I'm also proud that this county has a veterans home. We are one of the few counties in New York State that has a veterans home. And so what is that all about? That's about those who have served the country, those who have marched to the sound of the guns, being allowed to live out their lives in dignity and respect. We also know, and unfortunately we've learned it the hard way, is that all the people who have suffered from war didn't necessarily die in war. They bear many of those scars. And whether they be medical scars or emotional scars, they bring them right here at home. And so, for example, the war that I'm most familiar with, the Vietnam War, where over 58,000 Americans paid the ultimate sacrifice in freedom's cause. Many of those veterans are back here. They're alive, but they bear physical scars and emotional scars of war. Some of them are homeless. Some of them are unemployed. We also know that Vietnam was a great leap forward in that our medevac helicopters saved many people, and the Vietnam veterans in this room know what I'm talking about. People who would have died in other wars were medevaced, and they were saved and they came home, but they still bear those physical and emotional scars of war. Take that to other wars that we have fought. Grenada, Desert Shield, Desert Storm, in Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom. We know we have two wars that are ongoing right now, one in Iraq and one in Afghanistan. Medical advancements have been so great that we even have more soldiers coming home. And when I say the word soldier, I mean soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Coast Guard. I mean all of our service members who've served so bravely on the battlefield. Many, many more are coming home. We know one such veteran is Lance Corporal John Curtin, who we have all honored and who some of us had the privilege to visit at Walter Reed Medical Center. This means that we're going to have many people living their lives out in Putnam County and in the Hudson Valley. All the heroes are not going to be buried in places like Arlington or West Point. Some of them will come back and live out their lives. And I think in addition to having a place for soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marine, Coast Guards, Merchant Marines, all those who've served the country in time of war, it's important that that we have a final resting place for those that do not want to leave their community, those that want to live in their home or spend their resting place in their home county and in the Hudson Valley. Now, I have to tell you, as I stand up here, I'm one who believes that the only part of me that is going to be in the county someday or planted in the county someday is my earthly body. I have strong beliefs that my soul is going somewhere else. But that be as it may, I think cemeteries do play a major role in the morale and esprit de corps of veterans. And so I think this is certainly a topic that the veterans of the county, the veterans of the Hudson Valley care very much about. I think it's certainly a topic that the citizens of the county, those who we serve, those who pay the bills, have a right to know all the answers up front. And I think anytime we can have an education and awareness forum where we can exchange ideas, ask questions, and share information, that is definitely a worthwhile operation or seminar. And so I applaud all of you for coming tonight. I hope this is a great exchange of ideas, and I hope whatever we do, that we come out with something that will serve not only the veterans of Putnam County and the Hudson Valley, but all the citizens of the county well. And let's make this a very productive evening. So again, Senator Ball, I thank you for inviting me here tonight, giving me the honor of doing the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm certainly glad that many public officials are here tonight. I'm glad our county executive, Paul Eldridge, is here tonight. And so with that, I think Paul is next on the agenda, so I'll turn it back over to you.
Absolutely.
Jim Coleman. Thank you. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don. It's always very difficult to follow Don because he's so eloquent in speaking about not only law enforcement but his experience in the military. And I've known Don for many, many years. I knew his dad very, very well, very closely, close friend of his. And I've always admired what Don has stood for. And thank you very much, Don, for those words. They were very, very poignant. What I wanted to do was I wanted to take the opportunity, with it being a town hall meeting, to express some of the facts that I think have kind of gotten misinterpreted or misunderstood. And a piece of that is the fact that we were approached with the idea, and just conceptually the idea was discussed, I think, early, maybe February of this year. But when we actually got to look at the facts of it as to what we needed to do, the prime thing being that we had to submit a pre-application to the Veterans Association, or Veterans Administration. We then were faced with a deadline. And the deadline was that as of July 1st, we had to, through the state, submit an application to be considered. And it's actually a pre-application. There's been a lot of misunderstanding about this, that this is the application, and once this goes, it's over and it's done with, and there's no further evaluation of it. It truly is, and I actually went on the website and pulled down the information. This was a pre-application that had to be filed by July 1st. As part of that, we had to compile information that could be submitted actually by the state, on our behalf and the state's behalf, to the federal government. The federal government is the one that would actually be paying for the construction of the cemetery. One of the key issues that you probably heard was relative to the maintenance of the cemetery if we in fact were lucky enough to have a cemetery, veteran cemetery in the county. And it's important to understand that we, through Senator Ball's office, received a lot of key information relative to the costs of running a veteran cemetery. And there is a reimbursement formula for every burial for a veteran. There is reimbursement. It was $300. It is going to be, I believe it's $700 as of this past October. It might be this October, but certainly in time for when our cemetery would be built. Taking the number of veterans that are in this region, looking at the number of veterans that would actually access the veteran cemetery in Putnam County, it's estimated that with the veterans and the eligible dependents, that there would be about 716 burials per year at $700 per burial. And the rate is set for the veterans, and the setting of the rate for the dependents is up to the state because they're the actual owners of the cemetery. But in most cases, it's the same as what it is for the veterans. If you take that 716, you multiply it by the 700, it would generate about $500,000, $501,000 of revenue that could be used to operate the cemetery. Even though it's owned by the state, it would be the county operating the cemetery. If you look at the $500,000 that it would generate in income, the Veterans Administration also projects what the cost would be to actually operate it, the personnel that are typically needed to operate a veteran cemetery. And we've looked at that. And if you look at it, and I think this, I'm not sure if the details are going to be as part of the PowerPoint presentation, but just to give you a sense of it, they estimate it would be about $438,000 to have the necessary personnel to operate the cemetery. I personally think, having experience in personnel, having been the personnel director of the county for 30 plus years before I was lucky enough to be appointed as county executive for this year, I know looking at this, and I feel very confident that we could do it for even less than that. And some have said in the newspaper articles I've seen, well, the rates that they use in here are way, below what the going rate is in Putnam County. Believe me, we can do it for this. I feel very confident that the numbers that we have here are workable numbers, and in fact, I think we can do even a little better than they're projecting. But if you take their numbers, and you take the 500,000 for round figures as far as the revenue coming in, and the 438 approximate 440 for the costs, it would generate potentially an extra $60,000 a year. And one of the stumbling blocks in the discussions with the county legislature was, how are we going to pay for this? And what I came back to them with was a number of ideas. One was that we could take the money that would be revenue that we would generate over the cost, and we could put it in a dedicated account, a lockbox, if you will, solely for the purpose of maintaining that cemetery for the future. Obviously, there will be costs, perpetually in the future. But we believe, and I believe very strongly, that we'd be able to cover those expenses by the extra revenue that we generate. I also believe, in all honesty, that the revenue projections are low. When these revenue projections were put together, they were really talking about just the 5-county area around Putnam County. But anybody in the state of New York could be buried, that's a veteran that qualifies, could be buried in the Veterans Cemetery. So there's others outside of that 50-mile radius that could be buried there. But there's also the city of New York. There could be folks that would like to be buried that are living in the city of New York. One really critical thing is that there is a need to have one in the Hudson Valley. If anybody wants to be buried in a veterans cemetery in New York State, the closest one, as I understand, it's out on Long Island. And once anybody that's recently tried to get down to any place on Long Island, is going to take you 2 or 3 hours. As a matter of fact, one of the people that spoke at one of the meetings that we had on this said that their parent was buried at that cemetery on Long Island, and they just don't go down there. And his spouse could not go because it was too far and it was too difficult to get there. She was becoming more frail, and it was impossible for her to travel 2 or 3 hours to get there. The estimate is that there's 99,000 just in the 5-county area that could potentially utilize the cemetery. And if you expand it and you look at the others that would be eligible, I truly believe that this number is low. The revenue number, I believe, is low. I think the expense number for maintenance is probably close, but I think we can do better with it. So from my perspective, I truly believe that we could do this. The county can commit to it and has committed to it, and that we can have success with this project. I think, too, that we can't just look at the numbers. You have to look at the numbers because it's important. We're in government, and everybody needs to look at the numbers and consider the costs. But we can't lose sight of the fact that this will be a cemetery for our veterans. What better way to spend our money than to honor our veterans? These are people that Donna more eloquently stated than I can state, have sacrificed to give us the freedoms that we enjoy every day. So it's critically important that we remember that. We want to honor our vets. We want to provide a cemetery in what I believe is the most beautiful county in the Hudson Valley. I mean, no matter where you go up and down this Hudson Valley, there is no place prettier than Putnam County. And there was a narrative that was a part of the pre-application process for the pre-application that went to the federal government. And in there it was described the particular location that's been talked about and how serene it was, and that it really is a place for reflection. And I can easily visualize a cemetery there, and with some of the drawings that I've seen so far, it would just be magnificent. Are there issues that we have to deal with? Absolutely. There's going to be DEP and DEC and all the approvals and permits that you're going to have to go through. We understand that. But if you can visualize that property and that location and what it would mean to our veterans and to the family members of our veterans, I think it's an overwhelming picture. The county supports this project. The county's passed 2 resolutions, 168 and 173 of 2011. One was to accept at the appropriate time the donation of land, which is 100 acres. And so we've put a resolution in effect to accept that land at the appropriate time, and also the resolution to provide, which was an essential requirement for the perpetual care, that the county would take on the perpetual care. And we've done both of those. So there's other details that I think will be coming through on the presentation, but I just want to express for myself and for the county, and again, Senator Bowe, we thank you very, very much for pursuing this project, for tapping on our shoulders and saying, what do you think of this idea, for working with the county officials, for working with the state officials, for getting the legislation that you've gotten through the state, and for enabling us, with Jim working at last minute, getting that pre-application in by the July 1st deadline. So I'm very hopeful that we're going to be successful with it, and I think it's a great project.
Thank you so much. Paul, that is just leadership, courage, and vision. And this project wouldn't be where it is without your support and the leadership you've provided in the legislature and the county. And with all the things that you have on your mind every single day, it is amazing. Senator, I'm ready to go to Q&A. It was just, thank you so much for knowing the details. Thanks. Senator?
Thank you. I'll just I'll give a little background, then we can run through the slides. I spent a little bit of time in Orange County, and I don't know how many of you have seen the county cemetery in Orange County. Has anybody seen it? It's a beautiful veterans cemetery. Now they take full ownership for that and all the costs. And I was in the assembly at that point, but when I saw that cemetery and what they did, and actually Senator Larkin was extremely active in getting that done. And they actually have their Veterans Affairs office there too, run by Tony Rizzo. And it is just absolutely gorgeous and just a fitting tribute. So when I saw that, and this was a couple years ago, I said, you know what, we have got to get this done in Putnam County. So when I was elected to the Senate and made chair of the Veterans Affairs Committee, I began digging into the options. One option would be the county just moves forward and incurs all costs and deals with perpetual maintenance and just gets it done itself. Then there are 2 other programs. There's one program, a federal cemetery program, and which basically replicates the Arlington model. We have 2 of those in New York State, one on Long Island and one at Saratoga. Then the other option is a state veterans cemetery program. And can we go to the, sure. Okay, well, and the reason for this is the Federal Veterans Affairs Administration, they want to be able to provide a burial option within 75 miles of 90% of all veterans in the country. Paul very eloquently spoke of a particular example where a wife has become too frail to go visit that site. Folks, we need to solve that and fix that, and that's a problem. We have over 90,000 underserved veterans in the Hudson Valley. So this program that the federal government has set up, and there are over 30 states, I think it's 31, 32 states, they have moved forward with this. New York State has not moved forward with this. But this federal program is extremely generous in all aspects, and we'll get into that in a little bit. So when I first got elected to the Senate, I immediately got on top of this issue. And what I found is that amongst staff, there's a lot of miscommunication and a lot of misinformation because people confuse the federal program with the state program with what some senators have moved forward at the local level, and there's just mass confusion all around. One of the big issues was perpetual maintenance, but the biggest issue, and you have senators, I won't speak of them by name because I don't want to speak for them, but we have senators that have moved forward with their own county programs. You have senators that try to take part in this program but really never got down into the weeds. So I pulled the entire Senate together on both sides of the aisle of senators that were interested in this program. And Frank Salas down at the Federal Department of Veterans Affairs has become our good friend. At points, he's just like, you know what, New York, this is too much. I mean, we have all these other states moving forward proactively. Why are you asking me so many questions? But the bureaucracy in Albany, just to get everybody to understand this, has been a huge task. Yeah, go to the next slide. We'll talk a little bit about how the program works. It was absolutely vital. We have moved this further along in New York State than it has ever been moved along. There was a perception out there in the Senate and in the Assembly that if one county began to move forward, or one senator began to move forward, then that would take away from somebody else who wanted to do it. So you had bills that were introduced, right? Because you had maybe somebody in upstate who wanted the cemetery, and then they didn't want the guy downstate to get it because the guy upstate wanted it. So they actually introduced bills that would have created, say, 5 cemeteries, and they began to do this bargaining, not understanding the program. And I want to get into the details on this and the weeds on this. It's extremely important, and I am going to put this on public access, and Carly, not allowed to fall asleep, but I need everybody, because there's so much misinformation out there. I want you to understand this truly from the get-go, so if you're asked, you know exactly what's going on. So they were introducing legislation which really didn't fully comprehend the program. How do we move this? How do we move this program forward? First, we needed to get 10% placed in the budget. The federal program is extremely generous. They require the state, however, to show that they've got skin in the game by placing that money in the budget. So they request 10% of the overall project. The federal government told us get $500,000 placed in the budget. This year, that was not an easy thing to do. We got it done. The Assembly actually took it out. It went back and forth, and literally I had it placed back in the budget the day of that we passed the budget. Absolutely not an easy thing in this year's budget cycle. $500,000 was placed in. So that told the federal government New York State's interested in moving forward. The next thing that needed to happen is we needed a specific piece of legislation authorizing the Department of Veterans Affairs to put in to move forward with the pre-application, move forward with the program. We passed a bill which wasn't tight enough when we really drilled down into it, and then we passed it again. So we did that twice. Now we have moved forward in the Senate, passing that. We still need the Assembly to move forward on that front. Where did Putnam County come in? I represent 3 counties. This program, Arizona right now has 11, 12, 13 applications in. The way it is decided, on a priority list, 1, your state has to do the pre-app, the state has to pass the enabling legislation, and then you get pre-applications put in county by county, area by area. Those are then, they pick a dot from that geographic center, it's a 75-mile radius, and they rack and stack all of them according to the number of underserved veterans. That's decided by the Federal Department of Veterans Affairs. Now, Putnam County, because of its proximity to that 99,000 underserved population, that's a huge number. Now, are there other areas that could possibly move ahead of Putnam County? Yes. But I want to thank Mary Ellen Odell, I want to thank Paul, I want to thank everybody who has helped move this forward, because by Putnam County passing those 2 resolutions, it showed not only New York State, but the federal government that Putnam County was ready to move forward. There is no other county in this state or any part of this region that is more prepared at this point right now to move forward with the program. And I wanted to make sure that was the case. And I know questions have come up, well, why is this so last minute? Well, we've been working on it since January, February. We honestly didn't think we would get this far or this quickly before the end of the legislative session. Then once the end of that legislative session hit, we had to move forward very aggressively. Okay. The perpetual maintenance issue. I probably shouldn't, admit this, but this is the reality about perpetual maintenance. The state is on the hook for the federal government. So all the hoopla about people saying, first, I want to make it absolutely clear that, in my opinion, as a fiscal conservative, this is the type of stuff we should be spending money on. Okay? Nobody has voted against more tax increases and voted down more budgets. Maybe some people, but not many. This is the type of stuff that we should be spending money on. Our veterans, right? A fitting tribute. This is the type of stuff. All that said, according to this program, it is the state, not the county, that is on the hook for that perpetual maintenance. one of the big bureaucratic hurdles that we had to overcome with the State Department of Veterans Affairs is that the State Department of Veterans Affairs has a limited budget as it is. So from their perspective, from a bureaucratic perspective, they're thinking, you know what, we don't want to be on the hook for even more dollars in a limited budget. I disagree with that because I think that this is the type of thing that State Department of Veterans Affairs should be spending money on. But to get them to actually get over that bureaucratic hurdle was not easy. We got it done, and Bill Kraus placed that pre-application in, which was not a guarantee in the beginning of the year. In fact, we had several very contentious meetings with the federal government because the state did not understand how generous this program was. But at the end of the day, if Putnam County 50 years from now cannot maintain the perpetual maintenance on that cemetery, it is New York State that will be on the hook. All Putnam County has done by passing those 2 resolutions is say, hey, we know we're in tough economic times, but just so you know, Putnam County has your back, and we are happy to take over that perpetual maintenance. That signaled to the State Department of Veterans Affairs, okay, we placed the $500,000 that was placed in the budget. Not only that, we have a county that's willing to take care of the perpetual maintenance piece. That placed Putnam County head and shoulders above anybody else. That took an extraordinary amount of teamwork. And you know, you read some of these newspaper articles, which, you know what, I mean, they've made a living off attacking me on the front page and saying everything from X, Y, and Z. But I got to tell you, the attacks against this program, I've just had my fill. I am personally going to reach out to every single household in Putnam County with a letter laying out the specifics on this. And to the extent in the future that misinformation is run, especially by one paper, I will personally reach out to every household in Putnam County with a personal letter sent to them, because you want to attack me, that's fine. But this program and this project is such a good thing. And this is within grasping distance right now, but we can do this if we continue to work together as a team. What's the next slide? Mary Ellen, you want to talk a little bit about this?
About the property itself?
Yeah.
About the timeline?
Right.
Sure. It was about March that we had started to identify some sites in Putnam County. Our county is not a large county geographically. Of course, we're in the New York City watershed area, and we are, for all intent and purposes, fairly built out. Had asked the real property director in Putnam County, Mr. George Michaud, if he could assist us in identifying parcels that would fulfill the requirement. We were told by Mr. Frank Salvis, the Director of Veterans Affairs in Washington, in charge of these cemetery projects, that the larger the site, the larger the acreage, the higher in the ranking that we would be. So already we had quite a challenge. Real Property Director George Michaud gave us 3 or 4 sites. We submitted them offline to the director in Washington, D.C., and he wasn't completely satisfied that these sites would work for us. Serendipity, a gentleman from the county, came and offered us a location, which you'll see here on the board. And just for those of you who are not familiar with the site, it's John Simpson Road and Route 312, Route 6. You can see that on the green arrows pointing down, that's the Middle Branch Reservoir. And the entire location was 136 acres, which we felt at the time, as did the director in Washington, D.C., that was suitable, probably more than suitable. The director in Washington, D.C. commented on the fact that this site was probably going to exhibit some of the requirements that they like, including the bucolic views that the county executive had mentioned before. So needless to say, with all of that, we felt we had a walk-off home run. So because of the timing of this, we are now into, I would say, April, and we quickly went to the county with the proposed donation. And we started the conversation and the dialogue about accepting this parcel from the gentleman and the family who is willing to make such a generous donation. And so that's the site right there.
And, you know, to get back to the generosity of the federal program, say they found something out, they found, you know, green spotted turtles, you know, that can fly that happen to be endangered, or they found an alien spaceship. The federal program, even though, because the 10% reimburses the architectural and engineering fees, right? That 500,000. The state puts it up, but the federal government will actually reimburse that. Say we got into a couple phases on this property and it was deemed unsuitable, the federal government allows you to move to another piece of property. Say that we found in an archaeological dig, we found, you know, Native American artifacts. The federal program would then still allow you to move to another piece of property. I mean, I have rarely seen programs that are this generous. So this is great from my perspective, and I thank Marilyn for the work. It doesn't matter to me necessarily where the property is situated, as long as it pays respect to our veterans. And I don't think we should get too caught up in any one piece of real estate, because you never know what's going to happen. But the point is, if they do find something on one particular piece of property, whether it's through SECRA or DEC, DEP, the federal program allows you to move forward, and they will still reimburse those costs.
Which I think, if I may, to that point, this particular piece of property will undergo every single review as any property would. There's nothing, this property is not protected from the regular SECRA process. And the town of Southeast, where this parcel is located, will be the lead agent on all of the environmental review to this property. So it will have to pass the regular normal compliance for environment and zoning and so on.
Can you show the pictures of it, Mary Ellen? Here's some pictures.
For the cemetery
I've got this one and those two.
itself. Well, this is just a general drafting of some of the locations. Let's just say, I believe we have this site in its entirety will be able to accommodate 65,000 internments. Not all will be burial internments. There are garden niches. There is a columbarium available, and they're all located in different areas. This particular cemetery shows the ceremonial area. Traditionally in these cemeteries, and some of you may know this, some of you may not, the ceremony itself is done at that main location, and then the casket or cremation is then delivered to its final resting place. So there's not a whole lot of public traffic throughout the area, so, which offers a lot of area for environmental green buffering and for actual burials. And that's just a black and white sketch. I think our numbers, if you want to roll back, the numbers are on there as to how many, but I believe it's up to 65,000 depending on. So it is a long-term, yeah, on the bottom, which is tough to read. It can accommodate, you know, as we mentioned, the 99,000 plus of our underserved veterans.
If I'm not mistaken, Mary Ellen, I know one of the comments at one of the legislative meetings was that, you know, there'd be embalming fluid and whatever, and you're that close to the water body and so forth, but they're concrete walls.
They are, correct. They are.
So, you know, they're completely enclosed, they're concrete for long-term, you know.
For those that are in the burial.
For those that are buried, and many are not, or in the columbariums.
And the columbariums and cremains have become a very affordable way.
Yes.
And becoming more and more popular.
Do we want to open up to questions, or
This-
go to next steps? Or?
What, Senator? This just simply just covers the financing.
Alternate sites are in case this doesn't meet.
They've been disqualified, but the sites that we had looked at, there was a property in Patterson.
Right.
It actually was bisected by the bike path. And why we thought at the time that may offer something good, it was denied by Washington. And
So
then.
of the three counties that Greg represents, are there any other, are there any other plots that might be considered? This is a wonderful program, but I mean, I'm just so very concerned about whether it's going to pass. You know, that it's going to say, oh, this is great, and we all get excited about it, and then it's just not going to meet government standards, you know. So I was just wondering, in the three counties that you represent,
There definitely
Are
are.
there
There
any
definitely
others?
are.
Are
You
there
know,
any
our
other
folks will be
sites?
Putnam County, I think we'll figure it out. You know, there are, but I think that in Putnam County, we can definitely figure it out.
Two questions. The site, are there plans to keep trees and some shrubbery there?
There is an environmental buffer as well as a
Because I
landscape.
can't envision it like this hill over here.
No.
That was stripped.
Oh, gosh.
And the other thing, I buried two relatives in the state cemeteries in Jersey. One was run by a Army warrant officer. He was in charge of all the escorts, everything else. So do we have, Carl, anything in the plans for the honor guards and things coming down?
Well, that's usually provided not by necessarily by
From
the
the mayor?
cemetery. That's provided, you know, outside, you know, we arrange things like that for the veterans. But we would be involved in it as, you know, the director would be an employee of the county. And we probably could work something like that where we would have a county honor guard.
Because in Jersey there was one sergeant major, met everybody. They they played the different music and stuff in that center thing.
Was that a state veteran cemetery?
Yes, and
So it would be very similar.
my younger brother, he and his wife are already picking out their things for the ashes. So there's you plan well ahead of time. So.
You know, when you're talking about the site itself, if you look, the neighboring parcels, you have Tilly Foster, and you have a golf course, and you have the Hunters Glen condominium complex, and they themselves all maintain their own environmental.
Mary Ellen, would you mind going up there and showing us what you're talking about? Because I'm not sure
Sure.
where's what.
Where's what?
Yeah. Thank you.
Does anybody have a, I have
Pointer?
This is the cemetery right here.
I understand the cemetery, but relative to Tilly Forster and the other things, I thought Mary Ellen might point it out.
Yep.
Absolutely.
this'll do it. No, okay.
I got a pen if you want to use it.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Okay, so Dennis, you can, let's see how I can get you where you are. Route 6 is here, the causeway. Okay.
312.
You know that small part of Middle Branch,
Yeah.
right? 312 is here, Tilly Foster. You recognize that there?
Yep.
Okay. John Simpson Road
Yep.
is here. Centennial Golf Course.
So that's Fair Street then.
Hunter, here's John Simpson Road.
Yeah.
Centennial Golf Course, Hunter's Glen. Does that help you out? You got
Yes,
it there?
very
Okay.
much.
Thank you.
It's not a question, it's actually, I want to offer my services if you would like me to go walk the land, if you have everybody's permission, to see if I can locate anything on there native-wise, especially burial grounds, because older burial grounds are very hidden, and people have no idea what they look like. And I can do that before you get too far in advance. And I'll offer my services to do that if you want,
Thank you.
okay?
Are there any other
I did it
questions?
for town hall.
Sir?
That site plan shows the entire 136 acres. The 36 that fell away, is that the frontage on Simpson or somewhere else? Where's the 100 that remains?
Yeah, the access will remain on John Simpson right there, and they'll cut off a part, I believe, Jim, it was to the right of it.
Yeah, to the right.
To the right. They'll maintain, thank you, this area here.
Before Root Avenue or after?
I believe he already, I'm trying to get that, that would be probably just right there, right, wouldn't it?
Root Avenue is this here, and what she's saying is Is it going to
That's
be on
in-
that side, is what she said?
Here's the access right there.
I
He'll
see.
have his,
So they'll put a driveway between those lots?
and we'll maintain that as the access.
You know, I think this is a great program and a great idea, and I think, you know, I chuckle when the government tells me we're gonna bring it in cheap under budget. You know, to me, that's like, okay, great, and I accept that it will cost the county, and it is probably worth it. It's something really good to do. As a resident of John Simpson Road, I've been tuned in to what's going on here. I have a personal stake, and I will, full disclosure, I live on that street.
That's where we live.
I'm very familiar with this site and what's going on here, and my concern is that by focusing on this site, you're actually making this project less likely to succeed because of the reservoir, because of the environmental issue, because of the traffic issue, that by honing in on this particular site, at the legislature, when they approved it, one of the legislators said, well, it's going to take 7 to 10 years to get through the environmental review anyway, so I'm going to vote yes. At least 2 other people voted yes, thinking this will never see the light of day. So my concern, because I voted for you and my club endorsed you, is that by picking this site, it's actually less likely that this is going to occur than if you found some other site within your district which has access, say, off 84 someplace, but isn't right next to a reservoir. So, this is a town meeting.
I totally appreciate what you're saying. I'll just say that, to me, there are 2 things. To me, it's moving the program forward and moving the process forward. And then number 2 is the actual site. And never fall in love with real estate. And I think is a very good, especially good advice on this. There was some work that was done here to try to move the process forward to show that Putnam County was serious about it. That was important to do. We've done that. And at the end of the day, the feds are not going to allow it to take 7 years. If it looks like it's going to take that long, they're going to tell us to move to another piece of property. So, and we are totally open, and I'm sure Mary Ellen and Paul and, you know, the veterans community will work together and continue to look at other pieces of property. And I'm not wedded, like I said. Would I like it to be? I would really like it to be in Putnam County. There's a lot of work that's already gone into this. It's centrally located, but Putnam County may be smaller than other counties, but there's still a lot of other property out there. But we needed to get the ball rolling to show our commitment. That's what we've done. And if this property did nothing else and served that need, it's good. The other thing I want to say, back to the generosity of the program, the $500,000 as a percentage of the total cost. Let's say the project was going to be more than $5 million. It was going to be 7 or 8. The federal government also allows you to phase the project. So if it's 100 acres or 150 acres, and that $500,000 doesn't match the 10% because the project's going to be larger, the federal government allows you to phase it in, and so they work with you at every angle. And I was in Albany fighting on a lot of issues, and I'm reading Google alerts about this property. I was not happy that this was a contentious issue in any way. I wish that I was at the meeting and could talk one-on-one with people, because some of the stuff that I read, some of the comments that I saw, I'm just like, you know, you talk about no good deed going unpunished. I mean, we're just all trying to do the right thing. So just know that, and you know, you're there, you have a stake in it. Let's work together and communicate, and you know, we can get it done. And okay.
Okay.
Okay. Are there any other questions? We've got to get the assembly to pass this, everybody. That's my job. I will be working on that. I'm hoping that there's going to be a special session before August 15th. If there's a special session before August 15th, I'm working with the majority leader on our side to make sure that the assembly hopefully will move forward. I'm hoping that if we go into session even after the assembly, that the assembly will move on this bill, including the other things that they have. If not, we're still okay. It doesn't kill it. We just have to, we're prepared to move into the next legislative session. My objective is to get it done during the special session that's coming up. The majority leader, this is a priority for our conference. It was placed on a list of things to trade back and forth during the end of session So we all want to get this done, and we have Senator Larkin and other people who are very active on the veterans issues that are working. Assemblyman Castelli is pushing very hard in the Assembly, and we have a Democratic sponsor in Felix Ortiz, who, you know, Carl, was a very good chairman of the Veterans Affairs Committee. He pushed very hard at the end of session. We had a little issue we were dealing with at the end of session that took a lot of attention, but we're full ready to get this moving forward.
What about Steve and Sandy? Are they both backing you?
Steve has been very supportive, but we picked Chairman Ortiz quite honestly because we have local support, but Felix is he was a great veterans chairman, and we have very successfully passed other veterans bills with him, and he made this a priority in his conference, so we're comfortable with him doing it. I would certainly want to see Sandy, pushing aggressively, and Steve will help, and Castelli as well.
Sandy,
What effect will August 2nd, the government shuts down, or they trade veterans benefits for something else? What will happen?
I hope to God I never thought DC would make Albany look good, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think there's some news out today that we're going to have an agreement. So
Who's going to bend?
I wanted to cover something that you mentioned when you first got up, and it was the negativity and what some of the people were saying. And I spoke twice now at the legislative meeting about this, and I think you're right. We have to address this. We have to address people that are taking facts, twisting them, trying to get the veterans and my fellow veterans involved in a controversy that's not there.
Right.
And I really resent that. They're making things up. They're saying things that are untrue. I know Jim would have been very proud if it was true, where it was stated that Jim convinced the federal government to increase the benefit from $300 to $700 single-handedly. And I mean, this is, and this is the thing that we have to deal with. That if you just give the facts, I mean, I don't care if anybody. We fought for the rights for people to have their opinion. We stick to the facts.
Right.
Tell the truth, and that's what I'm
if
worried
we
about.
can't communicate on this and based on mutual respect, I mean, what does that say? 'Cause
That's like the
other
people that live
issues-
on John Simpson Road. I appreciate what they came to say, and there was another lady the last time that came and made a statement. And that's important that we get a feedback from the people who are there and how this is gonna impact them. That's good stuff. But people that have agendas, I just, it's sad. And I'm glad you mentioned it at the beginning of your talk, and I just wanted to reemphasize
And we're
it.
going to reach out, Carl, I'll tell you that, because I've had my fill with it, especially on this, just cross the line. So literally every household in Putnam County is going to get a letter. You can all take a look at it, but we're going to make sure the people understand what's really going on this.
Good.
And I'm committed to this. Just know, as far as projects, I mean, there's legislation that's my top priority, but this, I want to see this done. And I don't want to be gray when this gets done, or bald.
I just wanted to comment on,
No, I'm going
Right, Carl?
What's that?
There's nothing wrong with being bald, is there?
Sexy.
God only made so many perfect heads.
You covered all his mistakes.
We're shining stars, aren't we?
I used to have hair, now I have hats, lots of hats. No, I think one of the things that caused the confusion to the public is that word perpetual, that we were committing the county to perpetual care. And only in the government could perpetual not mean perpetual.
Right.
Okay? So, I mean, that was clarified tonight, but I have to tell you, I think everybody thought that we were forever committed.
Right.
And, you talk about how many burials there'll be a year. Well, it's going to take, at 1,000 a year, it's going to take 65 years to fill the cemetery.
Right.
But in the 66th year, there's no income and you've still got perpetual care.
Right.
So,
And
that's
reading
a
this,
question.
it goes into a special fund. It
Okay,
cannot
there
go
you
in
go.
the general fund.
And you're right, now it's miscommunication.
It's, confusing.
And I felt, the frustration that I felt sitting in my seat in the Senate and reading some of this stuff and not being able to communicate it and getting, messages
Sure.
from Jim and Mary Ellen and Paul and it was upsetting. So hopefully we're gonna put this on public access, we'll send out the letter.
Let me reassure
The
you
people
about
who were,
something.
the people were quoted but didn't show up tonight, which is always interesting too. So you almost wonder if they want to have little nuggets of misinformation to continue to beat something up, I guess.
The veterans, the people on the Joint Veterans Council, and generally speaking, the veterans in this county,
there's no question that they want this project. There is no question, okay? And they will fight for it, okay? And no question about it.
This would be beautiful.
Yeah, we have probably, in Putnam County, probably 10% of the population is veterans. That's probably a real good round number. Count their spouses, and now you're up to close to 20%, okay? There's real reason for this. These are, and I believe that those statistics are different than they are in other counties. I don't think you can go to New York City and come up with 10% of the population that are veterans,
Yeah.
okay?
And if you see
So-
all the vets do for even Memorial Park and all, imagine what, I mean, because you talk about cost, I mean, the amount of volunteers that you would have in Putnam County to help run this, it would just be amazing. And, you know,
Off the charts.
yeah.
You know, and if I may, that was one thing that I mentioned that I forgot to mention tonight, and that is that I've already spoken with Cooperative Extension, the Master Gardeners Group, the senior citizens. I spoke with Bill Eustace relative to getting volunteers from the seniors, and I know the veterans would be available as well. We can do this. We're the kind of community that can make this happen, and if we have this in Putnam County, we'll maintain it and we'll take care of it.
Okay.
Sir, I just want to say one thing. I hope we get it. We should get it. I know my wife's sister and my brother-in-law are buried out in Calverton. We haven't been there in 30 years. I mean, that's just ridiculous to go out there. And I just buried my cousin up in Rhode Island, up in the Veterans Cemetery up there 4 years ago, and I haven't been up there since. I mean, it's just too far away to get to these places. And people don't understand. It's like Mary Ellen said, you come into the area, that's as far as you go. Then they take the remains afterwards and they place it in the grave. And the only ones that go into the cemetery are really the families after that. It's not a mass influx of people in there.
The beautiful thing about veteran cemeteries, they are visited.
Yes,
Visited
they
on
are.
Memorial Day.
But it
You're always
stays.
remembered. And
It
our vets-
stays. It's not a mass influx. I mean, they're going slowly. It's a place to reflect.
Doc?
Yeah, I'd like to make a statement. I have a brother buried in Pine Lawn National Cemetery. And I think the foundation of respect and honor and remembrance to a veteran is a final resting place.
Yes.
You've got to do something else too with your master plans, because to do a funeral or something here, just a place to go back to. Decent restaurants here.
You know where it is.
If you get a funeral, you might have 150 people there that you have to take back someplace. In Jersey, we had to drive 30 miles to get a restaurant big enough. Yeah, just their master plans for Brewster and
That's
Just the
that would
ways.
be a good problem to have for the local economy. Okay, everybody, I want to thank you so much for coming. We'll be in touch, right? Okay, thank you. You know, it's absolutely critical that New York State join the other legions of states that provide a benefit in the form of a state veteran cemetery. And at the end of the day, we've got to make sure that our veterans and those active duty service men and women who are killed in the line of action and duty have the opportunity, and their families have the opportunity to make sure that they're interred at a state veteran cemetery.
And what's the next step after tonight's vote? How will we expect to know?
Thankfully, I've been able to pass the legislation in the Senate, and we're asking not only veterans but the entire community to rally behind and make sure that Shelley Silver and the New York State Assembly also pass this critical piece of legislation. The Department of Veterans Affairs has put in a pre-application, but it's important to have legislative approval. We've done it in the Senate. We need to get it done in the Senate.
For veterans who have served this country in both peace and war, those who have given so much to this country. And I think tonight as we gather here, I know I'll be thinking about all the people that I've served with over the years, and I'll especially be thinking of those who gave their last full measure for freedom's cause and gave their all. The people who march to the sound of the guns are very, very special people. We just celebrated the 4th of July, which is the 235th birthday of America, and that reminds us that our freedom isn't free. It's bought and paid for by the blood, sweat, and tears and loneliness of those who are willing to serve. And I think
Excellent meeting. Great, good open questions tonight, and I think we provided a wonderful opportunity to share the facts and to further educate the public about what really is going on behind the intent of this wonderful memorial to those who've sacrificed and given their lives. So give it up for Senator Ball and the entire Joint Veterans Task Force in Putnam County.